Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Sidebar Speaker Series. If you're a member, this is probably the 100th time you've heard it, so bear with me. But if you're not a member, Sidebar is a career growth platform. Some of us, including the speakers today, we're Sidebar members. Subha and I were founding members, meaning we've been here for a while. And when we started, it was a peer group. It was a way for us to meet with other peers across the US, and now it's global. And it was a fantastic way of meeting people, learning from each other, leaning into the whole, pulling from that collective wisdom of other folks experiencing the same things that we were. Now it's expanded to far beyond that. Speaker Series is one such event that we do where we're learning from each other, but then we have in-person events. There's one coming up April 17th. So if you're in the Bay Area or if you're okay to go to the Bay Area, please do. It'll be a fantastic action-packed weekend. I'm Sue Belagodu. I used to be a product exec in my past life, and then, like most of you, have jumped ship to building AI products now. I was a co-founder of an AI native company, built it, sold it. Now I work with other founders through the same journey. Today, we have with us not one, but two amazing speakers. We have Elena, who has spent over 20 years building and scaling product and go to market from startups to big companies. Like, I love that you call them moonshot teams, Elena. That's fantastic. Elena is exploring what's next, but then she is building and teaching people to build AI agents, experimenting with vibe coding like all of us. So, Elena, thank you for presenting to the group today. And we have Subha Shetty. She is a fractional AI officer. She's an AI consultant. She's a long-term sidebar member. I was just talking about her Maven course. You guys should check it out. Subha has a really good Maven course around AI and adoption of AI in enterprises. Welcome, Subha, and thank you for coming back to present to the community. Uh, Elena and Subha will take us through the session. The only times you'll hear from me is if you have any questions and if I can take the questions and present it to folks, or feel free to indicate that you have a question and come off mute. Towards the end of the session, I request that you all stay back for a quick survey. We can do the survey while we're doing Q&A. I'll pop up an image on the screen for you to scan. We take NPS very seriously because it helps us understand what sort of sessions we want to keep bringing back for all of you. So please stay back to take that survey. Having said that, Elena and Shubha, this is all you from now on. Ready to get started?
Yeah, sounds great. And
Okay.
yes, please do take the survey and add a lot of useful feedback. It's great for us as well. So, with that, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to join us today. Sue gave a great introduction, just a little bit more. I am relatively new to personal agents, but I've kind of dove in with both feet and got very excited. And so that's why I'm here today to sort of share my learnings and some of that excitement with you. I actually first started when I was taking a class with Subha Shetty. So I'm so honored to have her co-host with me here today. I took her class on mastering enterprise AI agents, highly recommend, and then really started working on personal agents because there's a lot of craziness in my life and I wanted to offload it. So I'm hoping this is helpful for you. If you're already a pro in personal agents, this may not be for you. So feel free to sign off. But if you want to, see what other people are doing, there will be time for conversation towards the end. And we would love for you all to share how you're using agents today so people can learn from each other as well. Okay, so with that, I'm going to get started. Everybody can see my slides? Yeah?
Yeah, we see the first slide. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so first I'm just going to talk about a few tools that I have found really easy to help you get started. We're going to talk about the difference between personal agents and chatbots that most of you look like you're already familiar with, just looking at the chats coming in. What personal agents can do for you to try to seed and plant some ideas. I'm going to give you some examples. And then I'm going to walk you through an actual example of how I've used an agent. And I'm going to demo setting that up as well as demo another agent that's a little bit more complicated to get you thinking about what else you can do. And Shuba's also going to do a demo as well. Okay, so we'll have plenty of room and time at the end to ask questions. And if we want to go back into a tool and show something else, we can do that.
I just wanted
All
to
right.
quickly add,
Yes.
I love this session because Elena is doing all of the hard work. I'm doing a demo and I'm primarily here to answer questions. But I'm so proud of you, Elena. Thank you so much for inviting me for this. And also wanted to give a quick shout out to Joe. It's been a long time. Good to see you, Joe. Um, and Joe is another participant in my Maven course. So feels like we're amongst friends here. So feel
Yeah,
free to please come on video, everybody. I think that would be great to see everybody. Elena, over to you.
absolutely. Wonderful. And Shuba, feel free to chime in at any point too, as you know. Okay, so quickly, you probably are already familiar with many of these tools. There's so many easy tools that you can use to help you get started. I'm a less technical product leader, so I have gravitated towards Relay, which again, I was introduced through Shuba, through Jacob, who owns Relay. And it's just so user friendly. So I will be demoing agents that I have built in Relay today. But again, there are so many other tools out there. I will say I came across a really funny quote recently on LinkedIn that I just put at the bottom here, which is building agents kind of cycles between like, oh my God, that's amazing, magic to a little maddening because there is a lot of setup, there is iteration, it takes some work, but once you get it working, it's really, really good. All right, so what are agents and specifically how to think about personal agents? I think of them a little bit as like a chief of staff for my personal digital life. They can take action for me, they can be proactive, they can handle multiple steps. In fact, that's what agents are really, really good at. One thing that's really differentiates them is they can operate across multiple applications, right? So they source information from multiple applications and then they can output information to multiple applications. And they're tireless personal assistants. They don't have to sleep, right? So you can set them up to work all night long if you want to, around the clock, 24/7, 365 days a week. I mean, a year if you wanted. So I thought I'd start sort of really basic because I think many people just looking at some of the introductions in the chat window have some experience using probably ChatGPT or Claude and some of those other AI chatbots. If you have experience, you've seen that, you put in a prompt, it stays in the chat window, it gives you a response in that prompt, in that window, but it needs guidance from you, right? You're constantly interacting back and forth in single turn interactions. And then depending on how it responds, you might take a response and then act on that response. Agents can interact outside of the window. They're going across all of your different applications if you let them, and other external implications. And they can complete tasks autonomously on their own across those applications. They are particularly good if you have any kind of multi-step workflow that you are doing on a regular basis. You can set them up with that, all of the information and all of the steps in that workflow, and then they can act on your behalf. Anything else you want to highlight here, Shuba?
No, this is great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so when I think about personal agents, very high level here, I think of what repeatable task can I give an agent, a task specifically that might have multiple steps, for which I can give it very clear inputs and a very clear output that I want it to create. And my goal here is I want to free up my time that's spent on what I think is kind of mind-numbing, repeatable work so I can create the headspace for what matters to me. And that could be special projects I'd prefer to spend time ideating on and thinking about, something I'd love to build, or, time with family, time with friends. So here are just I'm trying to seed some ideas here because I found it personally before I started building agents. I kind of had a hard time thinking of like, what exactly could I offload? So I've put a list of ideas here for you, and these are all agents that I've actually heard of people building to help them in their personal life. And if you're just listening, I'm going to name them, I'm going to call them out. So one is inbox and communication management. This is, according to Claude, one of the biggest immediate ROIs that people have seen. I think it's particularly prevalent in the professional space, but there are people who have found it very useful in the personal space, especially if they have multiple dependents or people whose schedules they were tracking. This can be very useful. Scheduling coordination, that's another one. Also, when thinking about scheduling, it's not just scheduling. If you can think of like events in your life, really important events. I think it was actually in one of your classes, Shubha, where this guy's like, I just need help remembering the anniversary and preparing for it in advance and thinking of the gift I'm going to give and the experience. An agent can help you kind of stay on top of those important events and figure out how to prepare for them.
Totally.
Personal productivity and task management. That's a very popular one. And, it's very personal too. It depends on how you approach personal productivity. And it could be, I want to spend half of my day doing this or 20% of my time during the week, making sure I carve out time for whatever it is, right? You can create an agent that makes sure that you have blocked out all of that time that you want for yourself and your work and other things in your calendar. Research and information synthesis. I, for example, am tracking various research on medical things for my parents, new research coming up on new solutions and vaccines, etc. And so I have an agent that's working on that and actually giving me a summary every Monday morning with the latest and greatest research on that in that medical area. And I have found that very useful. Content creation, editing. This is a very popular one, especially if you're kind of launching a personal brand or a professional brand or your own, small company or whatever it is. This can be really helpful. It can take a long form document, slice it up, create a bunch of bite-sized pieces of content that you could post on LinkedIn or elsewhere. Even in videos, it can take, transcripts from videos and chop that up. So many amazing use cases there that I think are really, really untapped. Side note, I saw Ha on the video or on the Zoom, and I think she may already have an agent running on this. So I've definitely heard of a few people doing this. Meal planning, order placement, and shopping. You could have an agent create a meal plan for the entire week based on your preferences. You have to give it your preferences, right? And based on feedback. And then it could even place the order at your favorite restaurants if you want it to at a given time each day. So it really just depends on how much you want to hand off. Travel planning is another one. Shubha is going to demo a travel planning app, agent, sorry. Personal finance tracking. I have one where I use an agent to track some financial stuff that I'll show. Health and habit tracking. And recently, a Sidebar member shared with me that they were working on building an agent to help them with professional development, sort of like practicing speaking and getting feedback. So hopefully these are helpful. This just really scratches the surface. But I wanted to share these so you can start to think about like what aspect.
Sit down. Take a pouch first.
Was there a question? Okay.
I think we're having a parenting moment.
Yeah, I'll be sorry, I muted you. But if you had a question, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, very relevant to this space.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very
That is
timely. All good. Before I dive into the agent setup checklist, I wanted to just touch on a few things that often come up about how to set yourself up for success. Safety and data privacy is a big issue for a lot of people, understandably, right? Can I trust this agent? What are they going to do with this information? I will be honest, I myself have some concerns around data privacy. And so this idea of opening up my entire email box and my calendar and everything to an agent or WhatsApp messages makes me a little nervous. So when I first built my first agent, I actually created a different Gmail account, and it has its own calendar and Google Drive where I could have the agent access specific files in that Google Drive and create files for me in that Google Drive. And that's how I started. So there are different ways you can start just to try it out and see how it feels if you are concerned about opening up your entire email inbox and your calendar, etc. Training and iterating. So agents don't get everything right the first time, right? Subha has a great way of talking about agents, which is like, think of them as a really smart intern, right? They're really eager, they really want to get it right, but they still need to be trained. They're not going to get everything right the first time. And I love that. I keep coming back to that, Subha. So I love that phrase. It's working. You're going to have to guide them. The more that you explain clearly up front, the easier it will be to set up an agent. And that's why I'm going to take you through an example of how to do that. So human oversight, this is true of all agents. You've probably already heard of this, but you need a human in the loop. You need to be checking the work. And then scheduling recurring tasks and setting boundaries. So many agents, often you want to set them up to do something on a given schedule. So you have to be very clear on when you want that sort of schedule to be triggered, with what frequency it's happening, and where you want it, like what information you want it to get and where, and what do you want it to produce. Okay. All right, so I have put together what I'm calling the agent setup checklist, and I put it in the chat. And I did that because if there are any of you who have an idea of something that you want to try to build, and maybe even get started towards the end of this session as we're demoing things, keep this in mind. Make sure you have the role in mind, the goal, the inputs, the outputs, and the integrations. So what do I mean by that? This super smart intern needs a job description. They need to know what they're doing, right? So that's the role. And they need to have an idea of what success looks like. So what is the goal? What are you trying to get them to achieve? Then you need to tell them, what are the inputs? What data do they need access to? What is the task, right? And what context do they need? And then what kind of outputs do you want it to produce? Do you want it to produce a spreadsheet, send you a summary in an email, maybe create a Word document? I made the mistake of saying, okay, go create a Word document. And then I was like, oh, that's not the format I want. So you also have to specify in what format do you want the information served up to you. If you have a good idea upfront of the inputs and the outputs, then you know what tools you need to give it access to. And having that sort of understanding upfront will really help you and it'll just expedite the whole process of setting up the agent. All right, so now I'm going to just walk through this setup checklist and show you what I put into each of these steps for an agent that I actually built that I call the family logistics agent. And then I'm going to put this exact example, this text, into Relay and show you how I built it. All right. So the role of the agent is to help me manage logistics for my family. I help my parents manage their medical appointments and make sure they have caregivers driving them to their appointments. So the goal is to make sure I always have a driver scheduled to take them to appointments. The input kind of gives the agent a context and tells them what to do and where to look for the information. So every Monday, I want the agent to look at the events in my calendar, tell me if I have someone lined up to take my parents to their appointments over the next 2 weeks so I can plan in advance. And if I have someone lined up, an event will appear in my calendar that starts with the word driver right before the appointment. I'm going to pause there. I didn't have that before I built this agent. I realized as I was building this agent that I needed to be able to tell it to look for an event that had the same syntax every time so that it could reliably find this event that had the word driver in it. If it didn't have the word driver in it, I'd have to come up with something else. My parents' appointments have either their name Will or K in them. So I also needed to tell the agent how it could figure out there was an appointment for my parents. And then I said all other events can be ignored. The output that I wanted to generate is to send me an email with a list of appointments my parents have over the next 2 weeks and let me know if I have a driver scheduled, right? So pretty straightforward. This is a pretty simple one, but just laying this out and thinking through it can be really, really helpful. Okay, so now I'm going to flip over to Relay, and I'm going to show you exactly how I build that. And let me just pause. Any questions so far? All right. Well, if there's any questions coming through, Shubha, maybe you can help me manage the chat.
Really quick question.
Yes.
What made you decide to start with Relay, or how did you decide to start with Relay? Is there a reason why you stay with Relay?
Yeah, so I tried open AI agent mode and it didn't feel very user-friendly to me. I'm a non-technical leader. I then was introduced to Relay through actually Shubha's class. Jacob, who started Relay, demoed it. And it feels just so accessible and user-friendly. And I mean, it's still using Claude, ZLLM in the background. It's very easy to use. So that's basically why. I'm someone who likes a really good UI. All right, can you still see my screen, my window? My Relay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we are in Relay, and these are all my agents. So I have many different agents. So again, very user-friendly, colorful, fun, easy to understand. And I just did, sorry, let me go back just to make sure. If you want to create a new agent, all you do is click on this plus to create a new agent, okay? In this case, I don't see, they have a few example agents that you can start with. It's very smart, so it can even walk you through like how to start creating a social media marketer agent if you want to do that. But you can just design your own, and then you click on design your own. In this case, this is my family logistics agent. And you have space for a short description. So I'm just going to say, make sure I always have a driver lined up. Don't worry, you can always go back and edit this. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just come up with something that makes sense and will be easy for you to come back to. The next thing it asks me is what apps I want to integrate with. What apps is it going to need access to? In this case, for this family logistics agent, it's Gmail and Google Calendar, which is linked to the Gmail. So I am adding Gmail, but you can see they've already got integrations lined up, set up with so many different apps. So you're not having to do the heavy lifting of actually creating those integrations. Okay, so then I hit next, and it's thinking about that for a moment. Pondering, generating.
Do you already have all of your accounts connected through those apps?
I already have my Gmail account connected, and I use Gmail with my Google Calendar and then Drive, and I have my agent working with my Drive, basically.
But all the ones that appeared down below, you've pre-connected, and if you didn't have those connected, it would give you the list of all the available apps one could connect.
No, sorry, you meant the apps that you can integrate with. Those just surfaces. Those are all the ones that are pre-connected by Relay. I have not used all of those.
Got it.
Yeah. All right. So what I'm actually just copying and pasting what I showed you as this list. So the logistics agent checklist. That I'm literally just pasting that right in here, but I could, just for the sake of time, I'm pasting versus writing it all in. You do not need to write it in this format. It could just be a paragraph. You don't have to say role, goal, input, output. You could just say, help me create an agent that does X, Y, Z. If you put the extra thought into it up front, it makes it a little faster and clearer, I find. There's less back and forth. So now I'll just highlight, it's kind of cool. It knows I'm doing a family logistics agent, and it's automatically coming up with ideas and prompts that I may want to use. So very user-friendly. I'm going to have it build what I just asked it to build. And again, kind of interesting. It hasn't yet taken my direction. It's actually suggesting some other workflows that I may want to consider, which is pretty cool. So if a driver confirmation email goes unanswered for 4 hours, automatically email the next backup driver on my list. So I haven't said I have backup drivers. I haven't told it, but it's just coming up with ideas. That's all these are. I could choose to act on them or not. For now, I'm just going to send the prompt that I just put in and have it think about that. Now, what I've asked it to do is I've asked it to send me an email, right? That's the output I want. And it said, great, I'll build this for you. Here's my plan. Schedule a trigger that runs every Monday. That's what I asked it to do. Find events in the Google Calendar for the next 2 weeks. Those were the medical appointments. Analyze the events to identify any appointments with Will and Kay, my parents' names, and check if a driver event precedes each one. That's how I told it to see if there's a driver lined up. But there could be another way. And then send me an email with a summary of the appointments and the driver status. Okay? So now it's saying, which calendar should I use? I already have a Gmail account linked, so I'm going to tell it to use that one. I hit submit. Now it's thinking. It says, got it, your primary calendar. Let me build this for you. Now, what I love about Relay, which I didn't mention when you asked me that question earlier, is that I can really clearly see the steps it's going through. So here, I'm going to just close this. It's saying it's going to trigger every Monday. It's going to find the events in my calendar. It's going to analyze those events to see if I have drivers lined up. And then it's going to send me a driver status email. So it's done exactly what I asked it to do. Now, that doesn't always work so smoothly. I figured out what the prompts needed to be to go smoothly. Yeah.
Real quick, how is it telling the driver status of each calendar event?
Yeah. So if you may have, remember, when I was going through the example, let me move to this slide. I had to figure out a way to tell it that. So I did, it was like I had to.
Oh, so I thought that was the way of flagging the events as things that needed drivers, not that there was a driver there.
No, so what I did is I then added events that had the word driver in it before, that basically start before the medical appointment and last until the end. So like if I hired somebody for 3 hours to drive them, it would go from 11 to 2 and the appointment's maybe at 12.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So
That's
you're
not
basically
necessarily the best way to do it. It's just a way
you're adding content to each message to each calendar event that indicates both one, that it needs a driver, and two, that it has a driver, are both features of each calendar event. And it's just summarizing the work that you've already done in GCal.
Let me show you. So do you see my calendar right now?
Yes.
So I have no events this week. I have 2 events next week. They don't have drivers. When I have a driver, it will show like this. So there will be an event that starts before the appointment and goes past the appointment.
Ah, okay.
That's how I've set it up. Now, it can probably be smarter, and you can choose to add it into the appointment if you wanted to, but there needs to be some way for it to know, right?
I see. Okay. So you actually have a separate driver appointment that goes around the appointment. That's fine. I was just curious how you were telling it which ones are done and which ones still need to be done.
Right. Exactly.
And so you just set up a structure that makes sense for you, or?
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there are other ways to do it. So I'm going to test the workflow. I'm going to start this run.
Thank you.
No problem. And you can see I don't have a new email. I have, emails from past runs that I've done. But we're going to wait for it to go through the steps. And what's cool is as it's running, you're going to see a check mark as it's gone through all the steps. So it's saying I found 2 parent appointments in the next 2 weeks. And that's correct. There are 2 next week. AI correctly identified that neither has a driver event scheduled. And an email was sent. So let me see. Did I get the email? So an email just came through. And it's telling me the appointment time and whether I have a driver. and it says no. Now, see, no driver event found before, no driver event found before. Now, what you see is I don't really love this format, but I did not specify in what format I wanted to receive it. So that would be another iteration and back and forth with the agent. I have built another agent to do this for me, and it ended up giving me this format. So it gave me X's when there are no drivers, and it gave me check marks when I do have drivers. So those are some of the things that you just have to consider. It will give you an output, but it may not be in the perfect format right away. Okay, really quick, because I do want to make sure we have plenty of time at the end. I'm going to demo just a slightly more complicated one, just has a few more steps. This is what I call my timekeeper agent. I manage payroll for multiple caregivers I have helping my parents. And what I ask it to do is I feed it a weekly calendar. Right now I just have it, I put it in an Excel spreadsheet, but it's just a calendar. The agent can scan this. And what I'm asking it to do is look to see when all of my caregivers are working. The next step is to generate a personalized message to each caregiver with a list of their hours that I can send them for them to confirm or edit their hours. Then take the total hours and put it in a spreadsheet that allows me to track those hours and how much I've paid them. So this is the spreadsheet it's going to add to, and this is a personalized message that I can send them that I'm just having it put into a Word doc. And the first time it created those personalized Word docs for me, for each caregiver. Here, what it's doing is it's checking the latest worksheet. That's what I've asked it to do. I set it up so I can put every week's schedule here, and it just looks at the latest worksheet. So I'm going to run this. Let's see. And what we'll see is that it will populate a new set of hours for the week of April 5th at the top of each of these Word docs. And it will add a new line in my tracker for the week of April 5th. So far it found the spreadsheet and the worksheet with the latest schedule for last week. It's calculating the hours and total salary and generating the messages. Then it will look for the document that has those messages for each caregiver, and it will add the message. So it just found the document. It looks like it's about to add the message. There we go. Let's see. Well, that's interesting. And it added a line here. Interestingly, it's so funny how this always happens when you're demoing. It did not add my new message. I am not entirely, it was having a hard time. So that's good. It lets me know. For some reason, it had a hard time finding the document. I'm not exactly sure why. It worked right before I did this, but gives you a sense.
It's
okay.
It's not a demo if it works on call. So don't worry. You're right.
Oh, I'm not worried.
Right on track.
I'm not worried. What I wanted to show, though, which I think is helpful, is, I talked about agents being good at multiple steps. And so it's getting information from one spreadsheet, and then it's creating a document, and then it's adding information to that document. And then it's also taking what it learned from that initial calendar, and it's analyzing that information and changing it and putting it all into a tracker that I can use. So you can set them up to do multiple things for you. Okay, with that, I'm going to stop sharing. Let's see. Am I still sharing?
You are still sharing, and there are a couple of questions which I think will be great for you to answer, Elena, whenever you feel is the right time. But as you're probably navigating the screen,
Now it's free time.
Ian has a question on single versus multiple agents. Ian, do you want to ask the question live?
Sure, I could do that. Yeah, so as a bunch of people like pointed out, and you pointed out as well, Atlanta, is like tons of different ways you could build complexity on top of this thing. Like instead of creating those calendar events manually yourself, you could extract them from your emails. Having worked with this stuff, is it better to create like a bunch of different tiny agents to do these different pieces bit by bit? Or is it better to try like do you make one more big complicated agent that does all of that? And I'm just kind of curious, like I'm sure this stuff gets brittle, at some point. So I'm kind of curious what your any best practices. I don't know, it would be fine too. There was a thought that popped into my head.
I will answer and then hand it off to Shubha, because in my mind, I think it depends on like what level of complexity you have, right? Like the agent that I just showed where like the message didn't appear, there are a few other steps I could add to that. I would probably add it to the same agent. Like if I wanted to expose my WhatsApp, I would have it just put that message right into WhatsApp and send it to the caregiver. I would then have it analyze the response, it adjusts the hours as needed, and go ahead and pay the caregiver if I wanted to open up my bank account. Right. So it could do all of those things. I don't think you need another agent for that amount of complexity. So I think it depends. Shubha, thoughts?
So Elena is absolutely right. So the context is a little different, Ian, when you look at it from an enterprise use case standpoint and from a personal use case standpoint. I mean, at the end of the day, you also want to kind of like limit the amount of overhead and maintenance to be able to achieve all of this. So for this specific personal use case, Elena's approach in terms of like actually combining that totally makes sense and should probably be like 5-10 minutes of like maintenance over a month or so. So which is kind of like negligible. But for an enterprise use case, we specifically, from a best practice standpoint, recommend specialized agents because, and we train them accordingly. But again, it's different in an enterprise use case in terms of like specific realms and data and context that it needs to be trained on. So these are different when you look at it from a personal and an enterprise angle. For today, for a personal angle, it makes sense to be able to combine them. Okay, Shaheen had a question. Do you want to come live and ask your question?
I saw that it's about sending the email.
Yeah, to each caregiver.
Yeah. You could totally do that. You could totally do that. My caregivers aren't all very tech savvy, so they're all in WhatsApp. I wish that I could just have it do that. That would make my life easier. And then I could just, keep everything to this email account. So, but absolutely.
Yeah. Tanmat had a question. Tanmat, do you want to, I hope I haven't butchered your name. Can you ask your question live?
Yeah, Tanmati. That's my name.
Tanmati, hi. I missed the I. Yeah, I think I need glasses. Yeah.
Right. Elena, first I want to say you're a great daughter.
Oh, that's very sweet of you.
I wish my kids do the same when the time comes. Not yet.
That's very nice of you.
And I'm curious to see your price checker. That caught my eye. And what are the prices?
I'm still iterating on it, but basically for me, it was about travel. And I realized there are apps that do this, right? But if you're trying to get a ticket to go to a certain place, you can set up an agent to constantly look at ticket prices, on a specific airline going to a specific place. So I was playing around with that and that idea. Okay. Shubha's actually going to demo a travel agent. So this might be a good time to sort of segue into that if you're open to it.
Yeah. So let me pull. Sorry, Tanmati, did you have a follow-up?
No, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
You actually put it in perspective, Tanmati. I wish, my kids would do this for me too at a later stage. Elena, you're raising the bar and also giving us ideas. Derek, you had a question. As I'm pulling up my screen, maybe you want to come in and ask your question about QA, your agents?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, all my questions are about trust, right? Because I have elderly parents too, and it's almost like these are higher stakes than like in an enterprise setting. So I always wonder how you go about testing this. Like, like I was asking before, you can spend 2 hours just sitting there running tests, doing stuff manually yourself. But as we know in the enterprise space, you find ways to automate the testing if you can. Now, the question is, how do you go about doing that? Or do you guys not do that? Do you just sort of manually test?
I mean, I'll answer and then Subha, I'd love for you to chime in. For these agents that I've set up, I had to put some work in at the front end to get them to run, but then they've run pretty smoothly. Like honestly, the message is not showing up was like the first time that's happened. So I just trigger it actually. And I choose to trigger it manually sometimes just because I want to pay at a certain time. Sometimes it's not always the same time. So I want that flexibility. But I haven't found that I've needed to do a lot of QA after the initial work in the setup. But I imagine when you get like multiple levels of complexity, you certainly need to keep an eye on it and make sure like the output is consistent and there aren't mistakes and things like that. Subha?
So I'll add to what Elena mentioned. I'm a bit of a power user, guys. I have many agents running, doing a few things, both personally and professionally. So
absolutely a
with
power
that
user.
context, I actually have what is called a guardian agent that actually manages my agents and my agents' performance. There's a company that I do fractional work with called wayfound.ai. We actually build guardian agents. It's what they do. They govern other agents, make sure that the directives are in place, make sure if it is hallucinating, kind of like bring them in, does weekly context training, etc. But having said this, I think one of the biggest things that I have learned, having now implemented and taught agents for the last like couple of years, both in an operating role and now as a fractional consultant with companies, is that having agents is a great opportunity for us to actually simplify what we have from a process and a workflow standpoint. So what that means is, for me right now, the opportunity is I look at every use case that I want to actually put an agent on and think about how can I actually simplify the use case or simply make it go away. And if I'm able to achieve that, then agents is not a catch-all. It's only a solution to a problem. So ideally, you have a problem that is, again, fully vetted out, like very product management-y things, which I'm not going to kind of like reiterate here. So it's a great opportunity to simplify. And so I feel like I have a simplified workflow for my fractional business. For some of my personal work, I've really simplified a lot that I, simplified a lot of things personally for me. And then I add agents to be able to supercharge some of where I need anywhere from automation to intelligence to, autonomy applied. So it's a great opportunity to actually just look at your life, your workflow, and see where you can simplify things. Okay, so let me quickly share the travel agent. I want to preface this by saying, if there are folks amongst all of you that have not built an agent yet, there is simply no excuse, because what I'm about to show you is the lowest floor of creating an agent. I mean, it could not be simpler. If you thought Elena's workflow was simple, wait till you see this. You need the $20 ChatGPT subscription, but if you have that, the floor is so low. Every single one of you needs to be tinkering with agents and needs to be getting your own perspective on what's the right level of agents, what's the right level of trust in the agents, how do you govern these agents, how do you train them? You need to get to that space yourself, because frankly, it is quite a personal space since we are talking about like personal agents. So in ChatGPT, again, if you have the $20 thing, and for folks who want to actually try this with me live, let's do it together. Go to the main page, go to more. When you click on this plus, go to more, go to agent mode. And it basically gives you the option to now create an agent. You can connect to various different apps, connect to various sources, etc. Like, send me a daily reminder of my unread emails or important emails, etc. You can do a bunch of things with it, but we'll just keep it at a web search, at a simple web search right now. So what I'm demoing to you is a travel use case, like really plan kind of like a travel, to a specific destination, which I think all of us do at certain points of time. And there are templates here. you can actually use these templates and actually get to creating your agent. I have a prompt that I'm using just because this one actually takes about 10-15 minutes to actually run. So I'm creating a very small specific agent that I can actually show you by the end of this session itself. It's basically just 3 options to create a 3-day Tokyo itinerary. And you can replace 3 options with 5. You can replace 3-day with 5-day, etc. And I want the kind of recommendations in a comprehensive spreadsheet. I want a tab for each option. I want to be able to compare the options. I want to make the formatting, for some reason, I want to make it look very professional and color code it, etc. So let's see what comes up. What is really cool about what will happen right now is that, one, with a prompt like this, or you can use one of the template prompts that was actually there, you have given the trigger to be able to start an agent. Again, the floor is so low. The second thing that it does is, Derek brings up a really, really important point of trust. One of the biggest issues of trust regarding AI agents was the fact that it was a bit of a black box. Like nobody knew actually how the autonomy was happening. What was the brain behind the agent? So you can now see that they're trying to demystify the brain, how it's actually working. It might not be exactly what we want to be able to improve trust from 0 to 100, but hey, having seen that it's sticking to the source that I'm actually mentioning it, which is TripAdvisor, it's doing a kind of like a search result in and hotels, etc., in a very planned, structured way, gives me a little bit more trust. And this process is actually fully exposed across the few minutes that this agent will actually run for. I doubt if we will have the time to look at exactly how all of that will pan out, but here is the output that I actually have. And that one will also produce a similar output, but it's a different prompt at a different time, so it might be different. It gives me exactly what I want from a spreadsheet standpoint and gives me, options in terms of itineraries, what to do for the day. And if I'm not mistaken, it also actually gives me the options of like places to stay. If I probably download it, I can probably see it. So give me a second on this.
Subha, there's a question about what your tool of choice is for building agents.
I don't have a single tool of choice. I've right now, I think I toggle between a few tools. For personal agents, I tend to go to the OpenAI agent mode. I mean, literally the floor is so low, as I told you. Again, if you have a $20 ChatGPT subscription, tinker around with it. Like just select one of the templates and let it go. Like there is no reason why you shouldn't be building agents right now. So for travel, things like that, I use this. For more productivity use cases, I use relay.app. And if there is a progression specifically from like heavy automation through intelligence, through agency, I tend to use Zapier and or N8N. I'm also heavily living in Claude Code right now. I use that with a lot of my fractional clients, Claude Code and Claude Cowork, but they are more, very specific enterprise use cases. So this is my spectrum of tools that I use. I've used mostly other tools there. Interestingly, I've not used Base 44, which was one of the questions there, but I've used most everything: Lovable, Cursor, Vercel, build agents on Codex, etc. And I think after a year of like tinkering, this is my sweet spot. Simple personal agents, OpenAI's agent mode, automation use cases that need to show more autonomy and intelligence, Zapier, productivity use cases, Relay. I just love tinkering with N8N. I think it's a cool product. But at work, I mostly use Claude Code and Claude Cowork.
And Subha, can you speak to this? Maybe a question that other people have. What the advantages of having an agent do the work on the travel, like creating a travel agent versus just asking an AI chatbot to do that?
Try it out, and you will see that the output is just not the same. Look at this output right now. It gives you day 1 to day 3 for a budget-friendly, mid-range, luxury, and a comparison. Now, this is first level. You obviously need to kind of like iterate on this, give more feedback on this. But first level, in terms of like outputs, try the same prompt in like a regular ChatGPT window and try it in the OpenAI agent mode. No questions. If you want to like create a spreadsheet, like do more actions, there's no comparison. Your OpenAI agent mode and agent specifically will provide a better output, which will give you a better baseline. I hope that was helpful.
So helpful. There was a question about like how much time one of my apps, I think that was Mariange.
Yeah.
Hello.
Elena,
saved me.
Just a quick note. While you're answering that question, I'm going to share my screen and show the survey code. So please continue to respond, but I'll pull this up quickly. Thank you.
No problem. And after you do that, I want to share just a couple more slides with some information about upcoming things. So for me, I mean, I've saved easily like 45 minutes a week just on that one. I have a lot of back and forth that happens, and between that and just making sure drivers are on point, I'm trying to figure out how to iterate on that more to take even more time off my plate. But as I am sure many of you know, like a lot of this stuff is just mental load, right? You have to do the thing, and then you have the setup, and then you do it, and then it just all takes so much time. And so just knowing it's taken care of and that I have that message ready to go to send, it really creates a lot of like just free space, brain power for other things. So that's how I've really enjoyed using personal agents. I do think, you take it to the next level and you get really creative with it, right? So I'm starting to dip my toe into the content agent and creating sort of bite-sized content out of larger form content. I'm really interested in it from both a personal branding and wider marketing perspective. But there's so many use cases.
Derek, you have an interesting question on version control. Why is version control? What do you mean by version control? Why is that important?
Yeah, so I think a lot of what I do is sort of exploratory. So I'll try it out, and then I'm like, no, that's not really what I want. And then like you guys are saying, well, I'm going to iterate and try something else. But I don't want to lose the work I already have, right? Now, if I was coding back in the old days, put it in GitHub. I have version 1, then I branch it out, stuff like that. And now that we're doing this is sort of like coding, and that we're running into the same dynamics, right? So I want to keep my old stuff. I don't want to wipe it out. And I want to change it so that it becomes a better version, but I want to keep the original version, which is version control. Right? I don't know if you guys have run into this. Yeah.
Makes sense. So it isn't exactly version control, but the way I'm interpreting this is there a way for the system to remember the prompts, the outputs, the solutions that I've already created, so I don't have to maybe create from scratch or go back if I have any learnings that I need to do, that I need to kind of like build on. So Derek, and that's what agents and projects in OpenAI, ChatGPT, and Claude are specifically focused on doing, because they retain memory and they retain context. So when you're creating an agent, etc., on, if it's a relay, for instance, they obviously maintain a copy of it. But, even in like the OpenAI agent mode, or with just even a project in ChatGPT or Claude, it's called a project, like if you can see it on the left-hand side menu, these retain memory. These will actually retain versions of your input and output. If you do the regular, like I don't do regular, like the main chat window, I don't know the last time that I used it, because it has no memory. It's a one-off conversation. So I build projects for everything. And most of these tools have a way of kind of like maintaining a copy of your agents. And if you're building on OpenAI agent mode, it does have context and memory too. I hope that helps, Derek.
Yes.
I will just add, Relay will, keep your prior prompts and various versions that you've run in the past. That's actually kind of newer to Relay. And I have found that helpful, because sometimes you'll add, another prompt and it didn't quite do what you wanted, and actually maybe it broke something. So you can go back to a previous test run and prompt.
And Greg has an interesting response to Greg. Do you want to come and share that live in terms of how you do your, kind of like track change in Cloudcork?
Yeah. You can do that by in the project that you were talking about. It's basically you're creating like a markdown file for that project, and then you can say what you want to control. But Derek, it's sounding like it's less the code that might be generated by the agent. It's more the data. Meaning that if you had a database, you want rollback control on that data, meaning that, I had it change, say, everything for my my personal contacts, and I had them updated everything, and I said, oh, I messed up, I want to roll back to the previous version. You can probably do things like that in that same kind of project when you're setting up the projects within say Cloud Code or something like that.
Yeah, it's not about the code because you can regenerate the code anytime.
Exactly. It's more the data you're worried about. That's more sacrosanct.
Yeah. It's like I wanted to do X. Uh-oh, that was a mistake. I actually wanted to do Y, but I want to keep the thing for what, right? So I could have done that in a Word document, I guess. But yeah, also do this.
Well, we just have a couple minutes left, and I just thank you guys all for joining. Please, again, do fill out the survey. Feedback is a gift. We really appreciate it. Hopefully some of this was useful. If you have any follow-up questions, don't feel free to contact either of us through LinkedIn if you want, or otherwise. I want to just share really quick. Can you guys see my screen right now?
Oh my gosh, I love all the emojis that are coming up. No, can't see the screen yet, Elena, but I was just commenting. Thank you all. Oh my gosh, look at all the emojis. They're so cool. I wanted to present a couple of my course offerings to continue the learning because I love all of the questions and engagement here, and I'm sure there is more questions that you have. I have a course that I run on this online learning platform called Maven, which Elena, Joe, Kalka here, they all attended. I'm so proud to see them kind of use those learnings and branch out and do amazing things in the agentic world. But it's about mastering enterprise grade AI agents. 100% live sessions. It's a 2-week cohort, starts either May 18th or September 21st. You'll build AI agents. You'll get consulting grade strategic frameworks for build by partner, strategy, total cost of ownership, return on investment, governance, key topics that actually enable agentic systems to succeed in an enterprise space, including a capstone project, which I've designed it to be fun, Elena and Joe, you can tell me, to have a fun learning experience. You have prizes, you have judges, etc. I'd love to see many of you here and continue the learning. For the first 5 signups from this group, I'll do a private one-on-one 60-minute AI coaching. And for this group, again, there is a 20% off if you want to sign up. So that's one of my offerings. Elena, if you could switch to the next slide, please. Derek, you are not alone in terms of wanting to focus on trust. Trust is a huge enterprise AI problem right now. We're coming out in 2026. In 2025, we've tinkered a lot with various tools, various prototypes, vibe coded the heck out of things. And in 2026, we're like, what do we trust? What do we not trust? And there are studies from Deloitte, McKinsey, KPMG that talk about how enterprise AI trust is actually slowing down and deteriorating. And everybody's talking about evals as the solution to all of trust's problems. Evals has its space in the world for sure, but scaling enterprise grade AI trust is much more than evals. So this is a half-day workshop on May 12th. I'll walk you through from my client stories. So this is live stories and examples on how to actually think of trust as a much broader strategic framework. But you'll also write and improve a product eval. You'll draft your team's governance policy, a lot of things that actually help you increase trust. And I'll also bring you, as always, the latest research insights. Again, 100% live. So Derek, I hope to see you there, and including many other folks who might be interested in this very, very important topic that is happening in enterprise AI right now, which is the lack of trust and how to scale them.
Amazing. Highly recommend attending one of Subha's classes. And then lastly, in a completely different area, I am giving a talk on what I'm calling the Agent Parent Playbook. I've been helping my aging parents very intensely for the past 3 years and a little less intensely over 10 years. I've learned a lot of things the hard way, and I'm very passionate about sharing what I've learned. Everything from managing different, medical challenges to Alzheimer's to cancer to blind to moving from house of 40 years to assisted living and memory care and all the rest. So if you have aging parents, or even if you don't yet, I highly recommend you consider joining, because you don't really want to deal with this when it's the last minute. It's much harder then. So hopefully that's helpful. Thank you guys again. Please send your feedback. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Elena and Subha. This was like the most self-moderated session ever. I could have like gotten a drink and, chilled. This was fantastic. Thank you. I think the topics were very, very interesting. For everyone on the call, I will share all of the resources that Subha and Elena shared in an email, in the wrap-up email. So you guys didn't have to like capture it while it was on the screen. Thank you for being with us today. And thank you, Elena and Subha. We look forward to your next sessions, and good luck. Good luck with the course. Good luck with the next session, Elena.
Thank you, guys.
You all. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.